So let's talk about cool jazz. This was a seriously revolutionary moment when music just took a big old deep breath and learned how to chill. We're going to find out exactly how and why jazz went from being super loud and chaotic to smooth and sophisticated. Let's dive in. Okay, so picture this. It's the late 1940s, and jazz is all about bebop. And bebop was pretty much what it sounds like. It was fast, it was loud, it was intense, kind of like the crazy city life it came from. But then this new sound started to bubble up that was the total opposite. Cool jazz was relaxed, it was soft, and it was all about these beautiful flowing melodies.
So what gives? How did we get this massive shift from something so frantic to something so peaceful? How did jazz actually learn to, chill out? Let's break it all down. Well, it really all started as a reaction. You had these musicians who felt that bebop was just getting way too complicated, way too chaotic. They wanted to create a sound that was, easier to connect with, something that focused on clear, beautiful melodies that you could actually follow and hum along to.
To get this new sound, they tweaked a few key things, starting with tempo. Now, tempo is just a fancy word for the speed of the music. And while bebop was famous for its blistering, lightning-fast pace, cool jazz musicians pumped the brakes. This slowed things right down, which gave the melodies all this space to just breathe and unfold. Next up, let's talk about vibrato. The easiest way to think about it is this. When a singer holds a note perfectly steady, that's called a straight tone. But when they add a little wobble to it, that's vibrato. Well, cool jazz musicians decided to use very little vibrato, and that created this really pure, clean, and honestly very modern sound. They also borrowed a pretty cool idea from classical music called counterpoint. Just imagine two or more instruments each playing their own separate melody, but they're all designed to weave together perfectly. It's like a really clear musical conversation, where everybody's listening and responding to each other. It made the music sound incredibly smart and sophisticated.
So you've got these new ingredients floating around, right? Slower speeds, cleaner notes, and these really clever arrangements. But it took one specific, game-changing album to pull them all together and create the perfect recipe for cool jazz.
And here it is, Birth of the Cool. I mean, the name says it all, doesn't it? This album wasn't just a bunch of songs, it was literally the blueprint for the entire cool jazz movement. It laid out all the rules and just showed everybody what was possible with this new sound.
This whole project, led by the absolute legend Miles Davis, was totally different from anything anyone had heard before. Instead of a tiny group, he put together a 9-piece band. And he included instruments you just didn't hear in jazz, like a French horn and a tuba. This gave the music this rich, almost orchestral sound. And the focus wasn't on crazy, flashy solos anymore. It was all about the blended sound of the entire group, thanks to these amazing arrangements by Gil Evans.
So, Birth of the Cool was the spark, but it was a whole generation of incredible musicians who fanned those flames. Let's meet some of the key innovators who really sculpted the sound of cool jazz.
And of course, we have to start with the mastermind himself, Miles Davis. He was the visionary, the guy who really steered jazz away from all that frantic energy of bebop and pointed it in this new, cooler direction.
This quote just nails what made Miles so special. His trumpet playing wasn't about showing off how fast he could play. It was lyrical. He played in the comfortable middle range of his horn, and he really understood that the silence between the notes was just as important as the notes themselves. It was all about creating a mood. And that, right there, is the very essence of cool.
All right, next up is Jerry Mulligan. This guy played the baritone saxophone. That's the biggest, deepest sounding sax there is. And usually it was just an instrument that hung out in the background. But Jerry had bigger plans for it.
He took this massive instrument and proved that it could be light and nimble, and that it could carry the main melody. But honestly, his most revolutionary idea? He formed a quartet with no piano. A jazz group with no piano. That was unheard of. And it created this incredibly open, transparent sound where you could hear every single note as the trumpet and sax wove their melodies around each other.
Then there was Dave Brubeck, a pianist who came at jazz from a totally different angle. It was almost a more academic, kind of mathematical approach. He was absolutely not afraid to break the established rules of rhythm.
So most of the music you listen to is in 4/4 time. You can count it in your head, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Super simple. Well, Brubeck's biggest hit, a song called Take 5, was written in 5/4 time. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 count. It feels a little weird at first, but man, it has an incredibly catchy groove once you find it. Brubeck mixed these complex classical ideas and these weird time signatures into his music, and people went absolutely nuts for it. His album Time Out became one of the best-selling jazz albums of all time. He proved that music could be really smart and complex, but also super popular, especially with young people who are looking for something fresh.
Now, while cool jazz was born in those packed clubs in New York City, it didn't stay there. The sound traveled all the way across the country and found a perfect new home in the laid-back, sunny vibe of California. And this gave rise to what became known as the West Coast sound.
And really, the poster boy for this whole West Coast sound was a guy named Chet Baker. He was a trumpeter and a singer, and his style was just so gentle and romantic. His music was the perfect soundtrack for that relaxed, sun-drenched California mood. He became a huge star, winning over tons of fans who didn't even think they liked jazz.
But the influence of cool jazz didn't just stop at the California coastline. Its relaxed, melodic vibe made it the perfect ingredient to mix and match with musical styles from all over the globe.
So in the early 1960s, a saxophonist named Stan Getz started collaborating with Brazilian musicians. He blended the subtle feel of cool jazz with the gentle, swaying rhythms of bossa nova. The result? A totally smooth global sound that produced one of the biggest songs in the entire world, The Girl from Ipanema. It was, and still is, the ultimate chill-out music.
So why does any of this still matter today? Well, the legacy of cool jazz is literally everywhere. Its atmospheric sound completely changed how music is used in movies to create a specific mood. You can hear its DNA in modern ambient music, in all those lo-fi hip-hop beats you study to, and even in some of today's pop. But I think the biggest lesson from cool jazz is that music doesn't have to be loud to be powerful.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought. Cool jazz was a direct reaction to the loud, fast-paced world of the late 1940s. It was music that deliberately chose to be quiet in a really noisy time. So that makes me wonder, in our own loud and fast-paced world, what kind of musical reaction do you think we need today? Something to think about. Thanks for listening.